Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. It is week 9 of the college football season. We're both wearing black. I'm wearing black because I just like these jerseys, and I'm not sure Ohio State's going to get a chance to wear the black jerseys at any point this season. Carla may be in mourning. I don't want to speak for her. I am. Are you?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This week's games.
Do we have to talk about college football this week?
Dude, I understand. I did the last 2 Michigan games. I was trying to think about what was it 2016 was the block field goal run back for the touchdown for Penn State, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 16. Yeah.
I was trying to remember because that was just brutal. It was awful. So I do get it. We do have this segment every week at the top of the show where we talk about stuff that happened last weekend. You may talk about this or not, whatever you feel like doing, but as we do, you can go first.
Yes, I can go first. So here's something I do want to talk about.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's really, really funny that the ACC annexed Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, by way of the transitive property of college football, acquired the Stanford postulate because, the ACC went absolutely holy what last weekend?
True. Yes. Yes.
It totally took the Stanford postulate and just blew it up. And I hope that that's true, because we need another conference that's just going to go absolutely crazy on weekends. And maybe that new conference is going to be the ACC because they sure as heck put on a grand display of that on Saturday. Mm-hmm. I mean, number 1 on the list, Virginia beats North Carolina.
Right.
Heck of a win for.
Was that the first win over a ranked opponent or a top 10 opponent or something? It was something like that for Virginia. I was just flabbergasted for as long as they've been playing football.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a road win against a ranked opponent, something like that.
Top 10 opponent or something like that. Yeah, It's absolutely ridiculous. And it came out of nowhere. And this Virginia team, I mean, AJ's been talking about them all season long. They're not that good. They've got some real problems, and some real holes to fill. And this is a North Carolina team that, could, I thought, be right in the mix in the ACC title race. Mm-hmm. But this is a Mac Brown thing, though, right? This is a historic thing. Mac Brown always loses a game. That is just absolutely it just doesn't make sense. And this might be the most Mac Brown loss of all Mac Brown losses. To go and lay an egg against a Virginia team that just do we need a
transitive properties of Mac Brown? Is that a thing we can start?
Mac Brown. Yeah, or the Mac Brown postulate. I don't know.
The Mac Brown postulate,
right? Yeah. Yeah, that he's just, he is in the ACC now. Is it Mac Brown Clemsoning? I don't know. We'll figure something out.
Okay.
Browning. Yeah, I like that. So we ended up with Virginia over North Carolina, and then if you didn't catch the end of the Miami Clemson game, that was bonkers too. Mm-hmm. Miami needed double overtime, but they sent Clemson packing, and suddenly we have a shift in, I think, an official shift in the
big boys.
The big boys in the ACC, right? Uh-huh. Who do we look to there? And then Florida State was on the ropes. Duke had Florida State on the ropes until Riley Leonard went out with that injury. And that just as I was watching the end of that game, I was like, oh my gosh, had Leonard stayed in that game, I think Duke could have done it. They had the momentum when he went down.
Giving away my notes for this week, but the Duke's offense pre and post Riley Leonard injury were night and day. Just night and day. The difference could not have been more stark.
Yeah, and what a loss. And again, I'm getting into my notes for that game too. But we don't know Leonard's status now for Saturday and for this week. And I mean that's huge based on what we saw. And I wish Leonard would have been healthy in that game. Because, once, as you mentioned, when he left, I mean, the offense just poof, disappeared.
Gone.
And so now the Noles are kind of in control of the ACC. pretty handily. Like they've kind of got the stranglehold on it right now. But with all of the chaos happening within the conference, is that going to be enough to get them a playoff spot at the end of the season? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. If they're unbeaten, it probably will get them in, because there's enough other chaos happening nationwide that I think that an unbeaten conference champion is going to go. I think regardless of what conference it is at this point, but yeah, if we get down to like a 4-5 tiebreaker, like that's going to be real interesting to watch. That's going to be really interesting to watch to see if any sort of this chaos happening in the ACC impacts Florida State's ability to potentially go to the playoff down the road. Okay, so that's what I don't want to talk about.
Yes.
The underwhelming performance of Penn State.
See, I don't think it was underwhelming. I thought Penn State played really well.
But they played without any sort of emotion, right?
Okay.
Like, I'm really tired of this team coming out flat in big time games. This has happened for the last decade, right? And they started okay. Like, the game was back and forth in the early going. I was right when it, but I can pinpoint where the game turned, and it's really, really easy. It was the holding call on Marvin Harrison that negated the scoop and score.
Yeah.
When Penn State would have had essentially a 10-3 lead in the second quarter. And that was called back on a holding call, which was a legit call, by the way, when they absolutely 100% was a hold, but it was unnecessary. And you mentioned this last week, and I kind of shook it off because I didn't think it was a big deal, but you called this right, that Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be a problem for this Penn State defense. And what that play showed me was that the Penn State defense knew that he was going to be a problem because they were making mistakes against him that were unnecessary, that they didn't need to because they were kind of scared in those situations, right? Like the secondary was outmatched against him consistently. And the other thing that you mentioned, was Aller's inability to throw a deep ball. You mentioned that very astutely last week. That was a huge difference here. And I'm still not 100% sure that I understand the underutilization of Nick Stapleton. Like, it was pretty clear, or Nick Singleton, I'm sorry. It was pretty clear that he had the bigger hops cutting through the line. When he got the ball, he had the more explosive effort. And it just didn't seem like he was being used in the right situations. Now, the Penn State was still able to run the ball, but I just didn't like the way that they were mixing and matching the backs in certain situations, right? That Katron had an okay day, but he doesn't have the hops that Nick does. And Nick can get through that line and be that explosive playmaker that you need. And number of times I was like, why isn't Nick in the game? Why isn't Nick in the game? Why isn't Nick in the game? You need that spark sometimes, and they just didn't pull that spark when they needed to.
Okay.
You're gonna jump in there.
No, I thought the same thing. Clearly, the one Singleton was the better of the two, and I think he had both of the longer runs that happened early in the game that Jim Knowles took the blame for. But yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the quarterback and why they don't throw the deep ball with him. I don't know how much of that is a choice on his part, and he's just immediately looking for checkdowns, or if that's a decision by the offensive staff at Penn State. So I'm not sure what that is, but
and what was really frustrating about the whole game for me was the Penn State defensive line absolutely rattled McCord. They had the Ohio State offense on the ropes at time. McCord's was visibly out of sorts in a couple of drives, and Penn State couldn't do anything about it. Like they just couldn't capitalize on that. And so, like, quite frankly, like, I'm tired. I'm tired of this team being underwhelming in big time conference game, playing as if it's already lost before the opening kick, right? We knew this team was young, but I'm not sure as a fan, I fully realized how much of the team's leadership over the last several years, this is just a hypothesis on my part, how much of the team's leadership was not coming from the coaching staff, but was coming from Sean Clifford and Joey Porter Jr. That might explain why Clifford was the 6-year quarterback as opposed to putting Aller in, who arguably has the better skills there, right? So, like, it's time for these young players to step up into leadership, and I'll call it, for James Franklin and the rest of the coaching staff to stop coaching scared in big time games. Okay. Because some of the play calling that they made on defense and on offense was, quite frankly, playing scared. And so, okay, I guess I talked about it anyway. I'll hang up and listen.
I really just two things.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. I don't want to beat this to death. Obviously, my perspective is a little different. I did think Penn State played really well, particularly defensively. Holding Ohio State to 365 total yards on offense, and nearly half of that, as you noted, was Marvin Harrison Jr. I think in terms of Ohio State's offense, it's not going to be a running team. It just isn't. Getting Trevion Henderson back and healthy will be helpful with that down the line, but the offense goes through Maserati Marv. I'm sure you were as even more annoyed to keep hearing that as than I was. He is clearly the best player on that offense, and clearly McCord relies on him, perhaps to the detriment of others. Although Cade Stover had a very nice day, I think just short of 100 yards receptions. The thing that was really striking, besides Harrison, that was the best defensive effort I've seen by an Ohio State team in at least 3 years and perhaps longer. The numbers bear that out. Penn State was 1 of 16 on third down conversions, 49 yards rushing, although a lot of that's discounted, close to 30 in sack yardage. 200 held them to 240 total yards. That's it. It is a good offense that Ohio State was able to stifle. I agree. Penn State's play calling, with the exception of that last drive, which was called really well. Penn State was conservative, and I'm not. I don't know why you don't. Geez, man, on the road, you've got this team not on the ropes, but you're right there. I don't know why you don't be a little more aggressive as far as that goes, but I'm ready to believe the hype about Ohio State's defense. That was a fantastic effort, and yeah, I hope we continue to see that for the rest of the season. Staying in the Big Ten, one note: Iowa got screwed because I'm going to demonstrate. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see this. If not, I'm waving my hand out towards the side of my shoulder. That is not a fair catch signal. It must be over the player's head. I think the rule even says that. It's got to be up here. It wasn't up there. And as Ferentz noted in the post game, most people move their arms when they're running.
Yeah.
For if you guys weren't aware, the waning moments of the game, Iowa ran back a punt for a touchdown to put them ahead over Minnesota, and would have locked up Floyd of Rosedale, the greatest trophy in the history of sports.
Yes. No. Land Grant Trophy.
Oh, it's close. It's really close.
Yeah.
If we had the pork and beef divisions like I had hoped for years ago, then maybe we call the Land Grant Trophy the bell cow. I don't know what we did. And it was called back because the official ruling was that the kick returner had called for a fair catch and then ran back. And that's just garbage. That was just garbage. The other thing, if I may gloat, I'm as pleased about this as I was about our game. I was right about USC. They're done. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Oregon, Utah for this week's lineup. But yeah, Southern. That's in my mind, until proven otherwise. That is Lincoln Riley. Those are his teams. Unbelievable offense, and no defense whatsoever. Because if Utah can score on you like that, you are not trying. That's
with a backup quarterback.
With a backup quarterback, yes.
But what a story for that kid, though. Like, he was a walk. I didn't realize like he was a walk on. And like to be a walk on to go win that game in the Coliseum, like holy cow, what a story.
What Willingham said, they've got a Heisman Trophy winner, but we've got a pig farmer that we're pretty. It's a great quote like that, and it's just like this is fantastic. The other game I had fun watching on Saturday were my Big Red Bears. Cornell had the kind of game I wish we could have seen the week prior when we were there in person. They absolutely dismantled Brown, 36-14. Cornell scored early and often, and while it gave up its typical late scores, this time just 2 touchdowns, the game was so far out of hand at that point that it really wasn't a concern at all. Drew Powell, nephew, starting running back, 10 carries for 26 yards, including a long of 9 yards, 1 catch for 4 yards, and a handful of key blocks as he's in for those packages. Get this, the Ivy League is fascinating, and it's going to be fun to kind of keep an eye on for the rest of the way. Cornell hosts Princeton at 1 p.m. in Ithaca on Saturday. It's on ESPN Plus. There are 5 teams in the league right now with 2-1 league records, including Cornell. Also including Princeton. I think 4 games left. And so Cornell will have games against 3 of those teams. So we need help catching up with Harvard.
Yeah.
But Cornell's in a position to win out, and they're all Ivy League games from this point out. They could make that they could make a run for a championship, which would be the greatest thing ever. So be sure to keep on keep an eye on that. That's going to be a fun finish. AJ, I don't know if AJ's paying attention to the Ivy League or not, although he did find Drew's stats page on ESPN.com on the ESPN.com over the weekend. But he does keep an eye.
Complete with the picture.
Complete with the picture.
Complete
yes.
The picture.
That was fantastic. I think that picture's a year or 2 old. I don't think that's his one in the senior thing, but we're happy with that. He's got kind of a scruffy beard, which he had last weekend. I don't know. I don't think his mom really is happy about this, but I'm not. She's good. She bites her tongue. She lets him do what he wants. AJ does not have a scruffy beard. AJ is paying attention to both the Pac-12 After Dark and the Group of 5 After Dark. I don't know what games he's going to be talking about this week. I don't know if he's going to have any weeknight games. We should note, although Middle's on a bye this week, correct?
They are on a bye. Yes, this is the last week of Q-Saction.
This is the last week of Q-Saction, and Maction starts next week.
Next week, we're back to Maction. Yep.
Yes. Which means it's almost November, which is kind of a frightening thing to think about. Anyway, this is a very long-winded way of telling you guys that AJ's here to talk to us about this weekend's After Dark extravaganza. AJ, please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. It is this week's Group of 5 After Dark report. This week is a weird week, not because of any particular, game. It's that this is a stupid week. This is a week where, on paper, everything looks like it should just go the way that you would write it up. The better team should win, and the teams that aren't as good will lose. Right? Pretty straightforward. Here's the problem, though. These are the weeks when stuff gets real dumb. This is when you actually have to pay attention, because the games that are on the big board, the games that are, number team, there's not a lot of them. In fact, there's very few of them. And so we have to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what is going to be good this week. We're going to go ahead and start at noon, and just as a heads up here, we're getting into some unconventional desire territory, okay? So just follow me on this one. We're going to start at noon. We got a Big 12 game. We've got Houston at Kansas State. Houston in last week had a significant shot to beat Texas. They did knock Quinn Ewers out. Quinn Ewers is going to be out for a bit. So, yeah, Texas might be quiet for you soon. But Houston had a shot at the end of the game, and they just didn't get it. And Kansas State is back on there. We're going to put you in a trash can type of maneuvers. Dana is on the hot seat. So can Dana potentially save his job by overcoming a 17-point spread? The fun index on this is 58.5, so possibly. But that's just something to keep an eye on. That game is actually sitting on ESPN2. If we move forward, also at noon on the Big Ten Network, we have Maryland at Northwestern. Yeah, I'm talking about Big Ten football. This is weird, but we're going to do it anyways. It's October, which means Maryland is bad again. This is a bounce-back game. Northwestern, very, very quietly, is 3-4. Like, a lot of people expected them to just full 1-10 season like they had with Fitzgerald last year. Congratulations to them winning 3 games in North America this year. This has the potential to either be a bounce-back game for Maryland and get them to bowling, or this becomes a really sad October for the Terrapins. Hard to say what happens there. We are going to go to 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Real sorry you're going to have to fire up that subscription, but it's directional Michigan time. We have Maction on a Saturday, Western Michigan at Eastern Michigan. Western is not good. They're truly not good. They are 2-6. They've not looked good really at all this year. Eastern's 4-4. And to be entirely honest, they're playing pretty well. I don't know exactly. I can't remember what Central situation is right off the top of my head right now. But I expect Eastern to come out and win on the gray field. Let's see how that goes for everybody. But that's on ESPN Plus. There's a little mac and cheese for you on your Saturday. 2 p.m. on the CW. We have Clemson at NC State. We have 3 lost Clemson, y'all. And I think Dabo is real upset that he hired Garrett Riley away from TCU right now. Apparently, if you didn't watch the end of the Clemson-Miami game, it was on the ACC network, so I could see why you didn't watch it, because you don't get this. You might not get the ACC network. You definitely get the CW network. But at the end of the game, it's in overtime, and it looks like on 4th down and overtime, they're on the 1. Klubnik goes to hand the ball off, pulls it back, and it looks like he's doing like an RPO, like regular. He saw something, pulled it, and Miami's defense just got him and took him down pretty quickly, and Miami goes on to win the game. After the game, a reporter asked Dabo, "Hey, that was an RPO, right?" And Dabo goes, "No, that was a designed run. He didn't hand the ball off." And we're getting some like spicy Dabo quotes. This is the sort of stuff that he would previously have like chalked up and said, just we're on our own path or whatever. And he's kind of letting it fly. If he loses to NC State, there's going to be conversations for no good reason, because this man has brought you literal national championships, Clemson. But it is a very silly time in the foothills. So, just watch that game. That'll be funny. Battle of the Bricks at 3:30. Miami of Ohio, 6-2. Ohio, 6-2. What network is this game on? That's right, it's CBS Sports Network, the network of champions. Mac bangers only, y'all. This is going to be a damn good game. Ohio is favored by 7, but the fun index is 39. This is a rock fight, but a really good rock fight. They're going to be throwing boulders, not pebbles. So, honestly, you should absolutely watch this game. Both of these teams are playing really, really well. And I don't see any reason why they don't run this back. Actually, I take that back. I can't remember the MAC divisions off the top of my head. I don't know that this is actually a MAC championship preview, but both of these teams are playing really, really well. And Ohio, by beating Miami of Ohio, could get a transitive win and loss against the University of Miami. So that's fun. You should watch that game as well. But I have to cover my beloved Pac-12 because at 3:30 on Fox, it's big noon, but West Coast. So it's still big noon in where it's big noon wherever your heart is. And my heart's on the West Coast because we have Oregon at Utah. Cam Rising has been ruled out for the rest of the season. Utah still has dudes on defense. I don't know that this is the Oregon-Utah bloodbaths of 2 years ago when Oregon and Mario Cristobal lost to Utah in the regular season, then lost 2 weeks later to them in the Pac-12 championship game, and everybody discovered how soft Oregon was. I don't think we're there right now. Oregon is running the ball incredibly well. If you have not watched an Oregon game yet, and that's a failure of yours, not mine. I've been telling you to watch Oregon basically every week since the season started. Bucky Irving is a problem, y'all. He is a running back for Oregon. He runs crazy hard, and Oregon's line is strong. This is not finesse. We're going to throw for 700 yards on you. No. Oregon wants to literally run the ball down your throat. What a wild concept. This game is in Utah, so you're going to have a fired-up home crowd for the number 8 team coming into town. This should be a darn good game. We have to have a polite conversation here about Wyoming and Boise State, which is at 5:30 on FS2. I know that you might have to Google that. You might have to look that up on your channel guide. If you're on YouTube TV, just type in FS2. But this game is on FS2. Boise ain't right, y'all. They are not the Boise you think or want them to be, really. Wyoming coming off the hard loss to Air Force. A really close game. I think Wyoming went into a bye week to then play Boise. This game is on the blue turf. These are effectively local teams. The American West is very large, so this is as local as you're going to get. But Wyoming and Boise State are really good together. I don't expect a ton of passing in this game. I expect the ball to be run quite a bit. Wyoming is the clear better team right now. They should have they had a shot to beat Texas early on, and Boise has struggled mightily in a number of their games. Boise's somehow favored by 5 in this game. I'm not entirely sure where that number's coming from or what Vegas is seeing, but this should be a pretty fun game. On the NFL Network at 6 p.m., we have Marshall at Coastal Carolina. I'm only saying this because Marshall still, I think, is in the race for the Sun Belt, even though they've been decimated by injuries. Their past 3 weeks was like the real heart and soul of their schedule, and they lost all 3 games. I think they went into it 4-0. They came out 4-3. Marshall fans were hoping to get at least 1, if not 2, in that stretch. But with the defense just being carved up injury-wise, it was really hard for them to get there. Coastal is not Coastal anymore. All the fun left and is now at a Christo-fascist school in Lower Appalachia, to a school I'm not going to name. They suck all the way around. But, the name of a company that would give you diabetes supplies. That's a reference. Go look it up. Google it if you don't remember it. But Marshall and Coastal, this is a bounce-back game, I think, for Marshall. I think they can get back on track and get themselves on the way to a bowl. I'm going to go to 7 p.m. here because we have to talk about, on CBS Sports Network, we have Air Force at Colorado State. Colorado State is, I'm just saying this now, we're 7 games into the season, and I feel confident in saying this. Colorado State is our chaos team. You do not know what you are going to get from Colorado State. Their quarterback, Nicolosi Flower, might have that backwards right now, is the quarterback of a Mountain West team that you want to watch, he is going to throw it a lot. Will it end up well for Colorado State? Maybe, maybe not. But it is incredibly fun to watch, and they can swing wildly in different directions. See their game against Colorado and Boise State, and see other games that Colorado State has played this year. Who knows which version you're going to get? Air Force's starting quarterback is out with an injury. He's out for a while. The backup is a senior, so it's not like he's new to the system or doesn't know how to run the option. He is a senior. He came in to finish the game against Wyoming and did not have too much of a struggle picking up where the starter had left off. So I see this as an opportunity for Colorado to throw a little chaos in. By the way, ranked Air Force. It's fantastic. I love everything. They also held Navy to a total of 2 yards in the first half last week. Just incredible work by Air Force. They only won by 7. Because option football will do that to you. It's just hold the ball for as long as possible. It's rugby, really. Don't look now, and I'm saying this right now, Georgia Tech might beat UNC. Georgia Tech has gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss literally all year long. It's a literal pattern. They're math nerds. It's how they work. They lost last week. If they maintain their pattern, they beat UNC, and UNC goes from being 6-0 to 6-2, and loses to 2 terrible ACC teams in the process. 8 p.m. on the Pac-12 network. Fire up your VPNs, kids. We have Washington State at Arizona State. Arizona State is 1-6. I would not want to play Arizona State in any way, shape, or form. They're going to make you look bad. There is no real rhyme or reason to it. They are the ankle biters of the Pac-12 right now. They have a defense that's capable of creating turnovers. They have a really great running back in Cam Scatabo. They just can't put it together. They had Washington on the ropes last week. They were winning at halftime. Washington looked completely out of sorts. They did not look right in any way, shape, or form. Michael Penix did not look good. They just could not get things going until they finally figured out, oh, right, we could just throw the ball to our really great receivers and they'll just catch touchdowns. And they finally pulled away and they won. But it was not looking good for Washington for a solid 2/3 of that game. Arizona did the same thing to USC. They just can't finish the drill because they don't have the depth to do it. And eventually talent wins out. Washington State is not that team. See the Arizona game where they got just wrecked at home. Washington State has to go to Arizona State for this. I'm putting this one on upset alert just for funsies because it's Arizona State. And I'm just going to take it down to our late slate. Also, sorry, one more before the late slate. No, this isn't the late slate. We're fine. We have 6-1 Oregon State going to Arizona. Arizona's 4-3. That's on ESPN. Oregon State's favored by 3.5. Arizona State's kind of good, and even though they're on their backup quarterback right now. By the way, part of the reason Arizona State is in just shambles is that they're on their 4th string quarterback and had to almost pull in a 5th string quarterback at one point last week. They are decimated by injuries, so Arizona State and Arizona in the same boat. Territory Cup. Almost got my rivalry games mixed up. Territory Cup's going to be a banger this year, y'all. Oregon State. Watch out. Be careful. Don't go into this game thinking it's Arizona and you're just going to win. Don't do that. I expect the Beavs to win. They're playing really, really well. Their only loss is to, at the time, a really good Washington State team, which has not looked as great as time has gone on. But Arizona is not bad. Do not overlook the Bearcats. It's going to be a problem for you. Finally, let's get into our actual late slate. On FS1, we have 6-1 UNLV. That's right, going bowling. UNLV at Fresno State, who is also 6-1. Fresno's favored by 7.5. UNLV has turned this whole thing around. Are they winning games by a lot? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They had to go to a last-second field goal to beat Colorado State. They beat Vandy at home on a last-second field goal. They are the cardiac rebels, but they're winning games, which is not what they would have done last year. Barry Odom has come in and turned the team around almost immediately. Please note Barry Odom's former employer and their current record right now. You can go ahead and Google it and have a good giggle for yourself. Fresno State just reloads. I don't understand how they do it. Jeff Tedford is a miracle worker, which is not something you could say about Jeff Tedford's career. But this should be a banger of a game. It's on at 10:30. Get your caffeinated beverages. We got a good 10:30 slot this week. We're not going to talk about what is on the CBS Sports Network because it is New Mexico and Nevada. Both of those teams are real bad. You don't have to watch that game, I promise. I'll watch that game for you. You don't have to watch that game. And finally, we have a Hawaii test. Fire up the Team One Sports app on your phone, copy the link to your computer, watch it on your television. San Jose State goes to the island. Hawaii, my beloved Bows, wearing my Hawaii Rainbow Warriors hoodie right now as I'm saying this. I love you so much. It's not going well for you. Can we get it together? Can we get a W on the island? You're at home. San Jose State, not great. Let's get a win. Go Bows. This has been your Pac-12 After Dark report. I'm going to send it back to you, Carla and Crappy. Be safe.
Thank you, AJ. We will keep an eye on that stuff. We will caffeinate if necessary. I have a night game to watch starting at 7:30, Ohio State at Wisconsin. So I'm going to be up. So we'll see if there's something that catches my eye when my game is over. You and I, Carla, will start our day the games that we're going to talk about on Big Nude at Fox. Number 6, Oklahoma at Kansas. There are many years we would not have bothered with this game, but I think it's worth talking about this time. Even the Sooners are favored by 10. AJ Fun Index is a genuinely fun 65. Carla, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so I think at one point during last weekend, while I was still recovering from our Big Nude game, I threw in our show text thread, wouldn't it be something if UCF was the team that knocked out Oklahoma? Because at that point, UCF had a lead in that game,
and presto,
and then it almost freaking happened. Yeah, UCF gave the Sooners a legit scare, and then a failed 2-point conversion was the difference that prevented that game from going to overtime. And so now after that, the Sooners have to hit the road and play in Lawrence to play a Kansas team that is once again absolutely not the laughingstock of the Big 12. This is a good Kansas team. The same way we had to wipe that out of our brains about Duke. Right? Duke is good at football. Kansas is good at football. And
as strange as it sounds. Yes,
it feels really weird. I know. And statistically, they actually match up really, really well against Oklahoma. And so I'm looking at this going, is Kansas the team that takes out Oklahoma? Because, let's be real, it's the Big 12. We know somebody's going to beat Oklahoma. We just don't know who at this point, because that's just the way the Big 12 rolls.
Right.
So is Kansas the team? Maybe. The fact the game is in Lawrence is a big deal here.
It is.
But it is really tough to get to bet against Dylan Gabriel in that offense right now. Especially with a Jayhawks defense that is average against in pass coverage. Jason Bean and Devin Neal have sparked that Kansas offense. They are super fun to watch, but it just might not quite be enough to overcome that Oklahoma offense. So I think Kansas puts a scare in Oklahoma, but I think the Sooners figure out a way to win this game on the road. But this game's close. This game's close.
Okay. This is a game that Oklahoma should win. It is a game that Oklahoma probably should and definitely could win pretty easily. As we noted when we were talking about the Wed River rivalry, this is not Lincoln Riley's Trojans, Sooners with all offense and no defense. But the last weekend's game at home against a team that may or may not be as good as Kansas is. Last weekend, I mean, it underscores this point. The Sooners are mortable. And as we know, this phrase is going to come up again when we talk about the Pac-12. The Big 12 kind of tends to eat its young. So I mean, Oklahoma absolutely could be undefeated going into what will likely be a Big 12 championship game rematch against Texas. But they could also very easily lose along the way, and Kansas is capable of doing that, especially at home. I think Oklahoma's going to win this. I agree with your assessment. Tighter, uncomfortable day for Mr. Venables and his Sooners, but they will leave Lawrence with a W. I think 3:30 is when the rest of our magic
all heck breaks
happens.
Loose?
The rest of our stuff happens this week on CBS. The world's largest cocktail party, number 1 Georgia versus unranked Florida. The Bulldogs are favored by 14.5 points. The AJ Fund Index is a cringy 47.
Yeah.
Again, we've got a ranked team against an unranked team, but this is a rivalry, Carla, and you never know.
It's a rivalry, and there's a huge curveball that's been thrown here, and that is the fact that we don't know what Georgia is without Brock Bowers.
Right.
Because the Dogs were really mortable, not super impressive. Pick whatever, adjective that you want to use there. Up until like the offense started relying like a lot more heavily on the Carson Beck to Brock Bowers combination. Yeah. Once they figured that out, like that's kind of hard to stop. That was when Georgia kind of really found its offense again this year. But so now the team's leading receiver, and quite frankly, a massive human being who is nearly impossible to cover, is out. He had surgery late last week, and so he's been ruled definitely he's out for this game. And so here we have a Florida team that's just been inconsistent at best this season. But the last time we saw the Gators, Graham Mertz was leading them to an improbable comeback win against South Carolina. Like so improbable that we actually turned the game off because Florida was down against South Carolina, and we flipped over to watch the end because we didn't because we thought the game was over. We thought Florida was going to lose the game. And that was the same day as the Oregon-Washington game. And unfortunately, we didn't have 2 screens where we were. So we flipped to Oregon-Washington, which was a good call. That was a heck of a game.
That is the right call.
So we watched the end of that game, and then we got into the night slate, and my husband looks at his phone after finishing up cooking dinner and stuff. And he goes, "Wait, Florida won?" Yeah. And I was like, "Wait, what?" And so then we had to go back and watch highlights to figure out how the heck Florida won that game. Like, okay, so this is a Florida team that it's been all over the place, but man, every once in a while it flashes glimpses of like being a decent football team, right? And so like you said, this is a rivalry game at a neutral site with Georgia's best player not on the field. Like, throw out the records and the rankings. I think Florida can make this game really interesting because I'm not sure that Georgia is everything that it's cracked up to be. Like up until Brock Bowers was the difference in this offense. And up until then, we were kind of like, whatever. I think the Bulldogs find a way to eke this out primarily because of their defense. I think the defense is the difference here. I think the Georgia defense is good. And I think the Georgia defense will be able to rattle Mertz enough to be able to allow the Georgia offense to figure out some method of scoring without Bowers. But yeah, I actually think as much as that fun index kind of sucks for a cocktail party, like I actually think it's probably pretty accurate based on the way this game's going to go. But I think Georgia wins a close one here and survives a scare in Jacksonville. Okay. Or no, it's not in Jacksonville. Are they playing Jacksonville? No, because the Jacksonville Stadium is being renovated.
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great. Well, let me. You look that up because I'm going to talk now, and then you can tell us.
I'll find out where the game's being played.
I mean, this game starts an interesting stretch for Georgia, which finishes with 3 games against teams that are currently ranked, and 2 games, including this one, against unranked teams that are also pretty significant rivals. Now, the one on the back end of the schedule, Georgia Tech. That's a win. Come on, let's be real about this one. This game, however, a win in the world's largest cocktail party isn't a guarantee. It's going to take a great effort on the part of Wisconsin alumni Graham Mertz, and those of us who remember Graham when he played in the Big Ten understand he may or may not be capable of that. Although what he was able to do against the game you were talking about, in the game you were talking about against South Carolina, was actually impressive. No Brock Bowers is a huge concern for the Bulldogs. When they had to scramble to beat Auburn at home, it was the Bowers was the difference. So I see, as you do, I see a really tight game here. And if Georgia isn't paying attention, as they tend not to early in their games, this game could be a problem for them. I'm going to pick the Bulldogs, but do keep an eye on this. Without Brock Bowers, you have to wonder where Georgia's offense is going to come from.
This game is in Jacksonville. I confirm.
In Jacksonville, okay.
It is in Jacksonville. I
so
thought
in a high school, in a
stadium.
Okay, so it's like Jacksonville Central High School.
It's at the usual location at the Jaguar Stadium. But yeah, I think I remembered hearing that there's renovations happening there, and they're gonna have to move this game. It might be next year and the following year, and so yeah, that'll be interesting.
They got to do that. They got to do that home and home, right? If you know if it's a 2-year window, you got to do that home and home.
Either do it home and home, or you do it at the Benzo, right? Like do it at the Benzo Dome, which isn't quite fair. Yeah, with fan bases, but at the same time, like that's a pretty darn good venue.
They could go play in
that game. So
they could go play in Tallahassee at Florida State Stadium. Just to completely
play at Doak Walker, just for grins and giggles. Yeah, just for fun.
Also at 3:30 on Fox, number 8 Oregon at number 13 Utah. The Ducks are favored by 6.5 points. We're into some rough AJ Fun indices this week. The AJ Fun index is a frightening 48 points. Carla, what do you think about this one?
Because Oregon plays defense, right? Like we talked about this. Like that's the thing.
Oregon plays defense.
We know Utah plays.
Yes, and Utah does as well.
Yeah, Oregon plays defense, and of course we know Utah plays defense, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you missed the end of that Utah USC game last week, like you missed what's becoming one of the best West Coast-ish rivalries, that will sadly be another casualty of the demise of the Pac-12. Right. Like, God, so many good like rivalries are starting to like churn up, and it's not going to be a thing next year, and it sucks. Okay, anyhow, I'm really, really, really tempted to take the Utes at home here, and you may have heard me say that last week, right? I was really, really tempted to take the Utes, and then I didn't, and then I regretted it, because I do feel like this game could be setting up a lot like last week. The difference is Oregon actually has a defense as opposed to the Lincoln Riley disease that we have at USC, right?
Yes.
And Oregon's defense is, as we've discussed previously, quite good against defending the run in particular. And Utah likes to run the football. That's what the Utes do. And so I think that strength on strength matchup combined with that prolific Oregon offense can make the difference here. And I'm going to say the Ducks win this game. Another nail biter. So many close games this week, I think. Right. I think the Ducks can win a very close game on the road, but hey, it's the Pac-12. As I say every week, if Utah wins this game at home, like it wouldn't stun me one bit. Utah is fully capable of winning this game. I just think after what I saw Utah do against USC, I think the difference of the opposing team having the offense, which, USC and Oregon can go toe-to-toe on offense. The defense is the difference here. I think Oregon's defense is what's going to, Utah's not going to be able to march down the field with a minute 30 left to go kick that field goal against Oregon. So I think that's the difference here. But it's Salt Lake, like crazy things happen there. Ask USC about that. Ask just about any other Pac-12 team there. So I'm hesitant to say Ducks win on the road because that's a heck of a hard place to go play. Yeah. But I think the Ducks are the better team here, and I think they're going to figure out a way to win this game. But yeah, if the Utes win, shoulder shrug emoji. I don't know. Welcome to the Pac-12.
Welcome back to the Pac-12. The ones in future, the ones in past. This. As I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the Big 12, the Pac-12, really, really good at just cannibalizing whatever chances its teams have to make the playoff. And this is a de facto elimination game, right? Both of these teams have a conference loss. If you have two, you got no shot.
Right.
Utah has looked. Watching last week's game, Utah has looked better than I expected without Cam Rising. I don't know that carries over to a situation where they're playing a team that plays defense the way they do, and these are statistically comparable defenses. The Ducks look every bit as good as we've come to expect. Especially they looked phenomenal last week against Wazoo. Defense wins games, right? And championships and all that stuff, but if the defenses are essentially even, I think you got to take a long look at the team with the better offense. Oregon's going to be able to score some, and I'm not sure that Utah's going to be able to keep up. So as is the case, as with your pick, I'm picking Oregon to win this tough game on the road. Also at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, number 20 Duke at number 18 Louisville. The Cards are favored by 4 points. This AJ Fun Index is 46.5. This looked like a much better game and a much more meaningful game a couple weeks ago. Louisville fresh off the win over Notre Dame, and Duke just crushing everybody defensively. So there have been losses in the interim, but this is still intriguing and still could have something to do with who's going to play Florida State in the ACC title game. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to assess this game until we know for sure the status of Riley Leonard for Duke here. Because as we've already kind of gone over ad nauseum, the Duke offense doesn't exist without him. Yes. And at this point, we're recording on Tuesday. We don't know his status at this point. And so you combine that unknown with Duke's affinity for running the football. Because that's what Duke likes to do, is run the football. And they're facing a Louisville defense that's actually pretty darn good at stopping the run. And then playing this game on the road at Cardinal Stadium. I think all of those things together add up to a Louisville win here. But if they decide on Thursday that Leonard's going to play,
you want to do over?
That changes everything.
Okay.
That changes everything, right? Because
I agree.
You get Leonard back in there, and I think Duke can beat Louisville on the road. But so since we don't know a lot at this point, I'm going to assume that that Leonard is not going to play, or is at least not going to be at 100%. I think that's probably a safe assessment. Even if he does play, he's not going to be at 100%. So I think Louisville can win this game on the road, or win this game at home. But you want to tune into this game for no other reason than to watch Jack Plummer play quarterback. He is an absolute delight, and might be the second best quarterback in the ACC right now, behind Jordan Travis at Florida State. Okay. He's got ridiculous numbers right now, and he's just so much fun to watch play the game of football. So tune in for no other reason than to watch him run a couple series with that Cards offense. But I do think the Cards figure out a way to get this done at home.
You mentioned again, I wish Riley Leonard was at full strength last weekend. I wish he played the whole game. I really do think Duke would have won that game.
I do too.
The thing here, whether or not he plays, Duke's defense is still intact, and as we discussed a week ago, that they are they're in the top 5. They may not be now after giving up, I think, 38 to Florida State, but they're a top 5 scoring defense going into that game. That defense is still there. And I am going to lean Duke here because of the Blue Devils defense. If Riley Leonard's playing, I'm all in. Duke wins us on the road. But I think Duke has enough defense. I would take the under. With the AJ Fun Index being 46.5, I would take the under. But I think that is a unit that is strong enough to deliver the win in Kentucky. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube or the show's Facebook page. And for the first time, you can watch us, listen to us, and read us on our Substack. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. Be sure to come back. Be sure to come back next week when I will have learned how to read English sentences. Carla, do you have any final thoughts?
I do. Just a couple of quick games that just kind of like caught my attention as I was looking through here. So I know we don't need anything else to pay attention to in that like mid-afternoon 3:30 window because good Lord, like all of the games we talked about there, but let me add one more just for fun.
One more would be great.
One more game. BYU at number 7, Texas is also at 3:30 on ABC. Intriguing because, Houston almost beat Texas last week, and AJ talked about that game pretty extensively, but Houston almost pulled that off. And BYU is pretty darn good. This should be a Texas win, but you want to scoreboard watch that game because you might need to flip over if things get out of hand in the other games, although I don't think that's going to be the case.
Okay.
Later up, Colorado at number 23, UCLA. That game's at 7:30 on ABC. That game has the potential to be real stupid. Watch that.
Yes.
And I know that this is AJ's game of the week, but yep, as much as I want to say the 3:30 window is everything and we can all go to bed early, we got to caffeinate. UNLV at Fresno, 10:30, FS1. To steal AJ's language, that game is going to be an absolute banger. That game could be one of the best games of the day. The fun index on that game is 68, I think. It's going to be stupid, silly, fun. 2 6-1 teams in the Mountain West. You got to stay up. I don't want to stay up, but I think we have to because that game is just going to be too much fun with all the lower, all the low fun indexes for the rest of the day, indices for the day. That game is just going to be the game that's going to get you all fired up, and then somehow you have to figure out how to go to sleep after it. So yeah, stay up for UNLV Fresno. Keep AJ company.
As I said, Ohio State plays at 7:30, so I'm going to be awake. And maybe in a situation where I'm not quite ready to go to bed, so starting
or
at 10:30
do what we old people do, or toddler parents do, is that we DVR the late games and watch them on Sunday instead of that other football league.
That's yes. The ESPN's college football final is I tape that all the way through. That is the first thing I put on the television Sunday morning, so I get caught up pretty quickly. My final thought has to do with the Battle of the Bricks. Both Oxford, Ohio, and Athens, Ohio. The streets are paved with they're not cobblestones, they're bricks. They're brick streets, and the name of the rivalry is the Battle of the Bricks. Guess what time this is on Saturday?
God, is it at 3:30 also?
It's at 3:30.
3:30 screens for 3:30.
3:30 on CBS Sports Network, the network of champions.
The champions.
The Miami Redhawks. They have a really. I'm not going to get into nicknames for what I have for Miami. The Miami Redhawks visit my Ohio University Bobcats. OU is favored by 7 points. This is the greatest AJ Fun Index of the weekend that I could find. This is our anti-AJ game of the week. The AJ Fun Index is 39 points. That is due to primarily to OU's defense, which continues to be phenomenal. Miami lost to Toledo last weekend in a game that many pundits, not me, described as a preview of the MAC championship game. I would contend that they picked the wrong team in the MAC East, and we're gonna see that borne out when OU beats Miami at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. Carla, I think that's all we got. It's just I may sleep until 3:00 in the afternoon and then get up and start watching football.
That's actually not a terrible idea, to be honest. Sleep in instead of the go to bed early. This is the sleep in edition of the Carla and Crappy show because everything starts at 3:30. There it is. There's no need to debate this week's title. We have it right there.
Carla, again, we appreciate everything that that you do for the show. Thank you very much. And guys,
thanks for listening to my rant.
Yeah, absolutely. This stuff comes up. I have opportunities later in the season for sure. Boys and girls, we appreciate everything you do for the show as well, which listening and watching and reading and all of those things. Enjoy the games this weekend, particularly, you find yourself in front of a television at 3:30 p.m. I think you're going to be okay. And to be sure to come back next week, because we will do this all over again. Carla, everyone, cheers.
Yes. Cheers.
Have a lovely week. We will see you again next week.